Welcome to Being Revealed with Stephanie and Alex. I'm Stephanie Cunningham.
And I'm Alex Holtzaffel.
We started this podcast to talk about the journey of personal and spiritual growth, ours and others. Thanks for joining us as we figure things out together. This episode is brought to you by the Revelation U Seekers Discovery Circle. This membership will be rolling out live in January. If you're a seeker on the path of self-exploration and spiritual awakening, join our community of like-minded individuals who are passionate about engaging in soulful dialogues and reflective practices. Together, we aim to reveal personal and spiritual truths, deepen our connection to ourselves and others, and create a life that feels deeply satisfying. If you're ready to embark on a transformative journey of self-discovery and growth, join the Revelation U Seekers Discovery Circle and let's support each other as we navigate the beautiful and sometimes challenging path toward a more enlightened life. Learn more and get on the membership waitlist at revelationu.com/seekers. Hello, my love.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Enjoying this Monday.
Yeah, it's Monday. It was just like a snow squall for about, 5 minutes. But luckily, it was just the 5 minutes that I was leaving work and going into Walmart.
Just enough to get it blown on you.
Right. I got to experience that.
Yeah. I was looking out there. It looked pretty intense, and then it just stopped. It lasted a couple minutes. So the world must have knew that you needed a gust of wind and snow in your face.
Yes, it did. It did. Thank you, universe, for that blast of cold air. So today we're going to talk about the impact of relationships on growth.
It's a good one.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
There's so many different types of relationships too.
Well, yeah, and you can learn from people from their good behavior or their bad behavior.
Absolutely.
So in relationships, it could be, I guess you could say, conflict that you can learn from, or something that like made you feel good, so there's all different kinds of ways you can learn and grow through relationships. So
yeah, and as I'm sitting here and we're talking about this, my mind is just racing with all the different things that I've learned in different types of relationships. And to your point, learning what you want in a relationship and what you don't want in a relationship, whether it be a friend, personal, professional, whatever type of relationship it is. And then, gosh, it's so big, the different patterns that you have in relationships and why you chose those people, right? And it's based on the relationships you had with your family and the other people you were around when you were young that you thought, that was just the right way to be, or that's just how people were, or this is how you do it. And, you might grow up and think, you know what?
You have more of a choice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Not super into that, but it does take a minute to figure out that you have a choice.
Yeah, and I know that you can, well, I don't want to say you can be picky, but I think you like to keep your group small, like the people that are really, really close to you, because it does take a lot of your energy. And, and you can have like a huge group, but not everybody's like that, And sometimes we have to be selective with our energy. And also at the same time, if you're sensitive like you are, you can also pick up their energy as well. So. But, this topic is good. And I kind of wanted to touch base on or plug something. And I think this kind of ties into it. And rather than doing it at the end, maybe just do it now. That way, if people get bored and don't want to finish the podcast, at least they get the message. If, no one would ever turn off the podcast.
No, they wouldn't. Like and especially not ours.
Yeah. But, work offers a lot of health and wellness services. And I think one of the things that gets overlooked is, EAP programs, employee assistance programs.
Okay.
And a lot of people think like those are just there for like someone who's like struggling with alcoholism or drug addiction and wants to stop, or they're feeling it's like suicidal. But those work programs are actually there to help you not get to that point. And a lot of the work programs will offer free counseling,
Oh.
certain amount of sessions.
Really?
Depending, who you work for
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's,
So that would be like outside of your insurance? It's like it just...
I think work just covers it.
Oh, that's...
I think
wow.
like our work covers like 8 sessions a year.
Oh.
So, it's good to know those things, because sometimes you can wait too long, and then like counseling and stuff like that, it can take a while to get in to see someone. So, sometimes you find if you really, and that's why all this stuff is important that we've been talking about in these podcasts, is knowing yourself. And once you can know yourself emotionally and tell something's not right, then you can search for help. And it's not, search for help, but search for someone to talk to before it gets out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And, work is really a good place to start. If you don't know where to go and you're worried about the cost, like I said, sometimes it doesn't hurt to check what your employer can offer. And I think it's great that my employer offers that stuff, and it's covered, like 8 sessions, and it can be anything. It could be marriage, it can be personal, it can be drug and alcohol, and that's the thing. Sometimes you just need someone to talk to, be like, hey, this is going on in my life, I'm not happy, I don't know how to handle it. And just sometimes being able to talk to someone is the first step into feeling good, or the first step in preventing a downward spiral.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we really try to reach out for help, I don't want to say it's too late, but we're already in a deep hole.
Yeah.
And then it's very hard to get out of.
Yes.
So I just wanted to plug that, because I think that's important, because, I think we forget that those services are offered. So.
Well, thank you for doing that, because I agree. I think people do forget, and probably a lot of times they're not familiar enough with their employee assistance program to determine what is available to them.
Yeah.
There could be financial assistance. There could be mental health assistance. There could be medical assistance. There could be, if you're in an abusive relationship, there could be something to help you get out of that as
That's
well.
true.
I think I'm really glad you brought that up, because I'm sure that's overlooked a lot. And larger companies are probably more apt to have something like that than smaller companies.
Yeah.
But no matter where you are, it doesn't hurt to figure that out, to look into it. And I love the fact that outside of the insurance, there could be another 8 sessions or whatever of, for example, like you said, mental health counseling. That's huge, because a lot of people don't go to counseling because they have to pay for it.
Yeah, it's expensive.
And you may not even need 8 sessions.
No.
You might just need a couple sessions, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. So it's really good to look into that. If sometimes we go through funks, we get older, time of the year, whatever it is, and we just don't feel right.
Yeah.
Rather than just like being like, well, I'll get through it. There can be resources available to help. So
yeah,
it's good to know that.
It really is.
And that, I just wanted to plug that, because I think it's important. But that's kind of where relationships come into.
Yeah.
Getting a job and working, and then you have access to stuff like that.
Right, absolutely. So let's shift over into relationships, and let's just start off with professional relationships. So we're kind of focused on how relationships can help you grow, or help us grow, as individuals. I think there are a lot of ways that can happen. One thing is that I can think of off the top of my head was when I was younger and starting out, and I know everybody likes to talk about how, this next generation of piddly little people, they're just terrible. And I was never like that. Well, let's call a spade, right? Yeah. So like everybody in their 20s still has a lot to learn. Everybody in any decade has a lot to learn. But especially when you're 20s, and I don't care what generation you came for, you were screwing stuff up, and you didn't know how to be professional, and you didn't know how to talk to people, and you didn't know everything you needed to know about your job, even though you thought if you were the manager, you would have it all so different. You would have it all worked out.
This fixed and that fixed.
Right.
We would never do it this way.
Right. So looking back, for me personally, when I was in my 20s. I mean, I was a lot, you know. I'm extroverted, I'm passionate, I get excited easily. That's part of the highly sensitive thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was a cheerleader growing up, but that is actually part of my personality. Like I would describe, at least at that time, I would describe myself as an exclamation point. You know what I mean?
And those are the people that I hate seeing at work. No, I don't hate, but you're like, you've been there all night, people come in all chipper and happy, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Right. Well, I'm sorry that you have to live with an exclamation point.
Well, I don't see that in you nowadays.
I mean, I've calmed down a lot.
Yeah.
And part of that is what I've learned, you know, over the years,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I've learned that my passionate self might need to be reined in certain times. And that's not living against, I don't feel like that's living against who I am,
like
or
suppressing yourself.
Suppressing myself. Excuse me. I don't feel like that's suppressing myself. I think I was just trying to figure out how things work. Maybe for a little while I was repressing myself because, you know, I got some feedback that I was a lot, and I was kind of bitchy about that. I think I talked about that a little bit one time. But, you know, after really thinking about it and recognizing, okay, well, it's good to maybe, it goes back to kind of professionalism, right? So maybe I had to elevate my professionalism a little bit and tone down the playfulness a little bit, which was actually a good comment.
Yeah.
Right? Now, did I repress or did I tone it down as much as that person wanted me to tone it down? No, I didn't. So, and that was part of me, you know, retaining kind of who I was as a person. Right. But I think it's good to kind of look around and see, what is this environment? What does this culture look like? How do I fit into it? How, you know, what do I see that I like from a professionalism perspective? What don't I like, you know, and how do I grow to be that person that feels appropriate in this space?
It sounds like it wasn't just something that you applied to your work life. It was, you kind of applied it outside of your work life. I mean, we're talking about relationships impacting your journey.
Yeah.
So I would think that you kind of change in all areas over time as you start behaving a certain way and maybe keeping it reeled in. Maybe it kind of bleeds over into your personal life as well.
Yeah, and I think really what it comes down to is understanding who you are and how you work, right? So we grow up and we have these certain narratives that we tell ourselves as far as who we want to be, who we think we need to be, and we execute that into our everyday life and how we engage with other people. But then as we grow up and we feel more comfortable with ourselves, right, and being who we really are. I mean, so you probably see me as being someone who's comfortable with myself. I wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
You know, none of us kind of were. But I will say once it's probably happened over the last 6 or 7 years. You know, I got to the point where I really said, okay, this is who I am and this is who I'm comfortable being. And if people don't like it, like my cousin Carla says, I know who I am and I'm not for everyone. And I think that's the perfect line, right? The perfect mantra. And so I just started being honest about who I was, where I wasn't trying to be dishonest in the past. I just wasn't talking about things that maybe the other person wasn't interested in too, you know? But like when you and I met, I kind of threw it all out there at first, and you threw it all out there at first too. And we were just kind of like, okay, cool.
This is who we are. And
it just felt so easy from there. And we were just kind of like, hey, this is who we are. And I appreciate if you like it. I appreciate if you don't.
Yeah.
You know, but this is it. So that's kind of what it goes back to, is that, you know, over time you learn to be more comfortable with yourself. You learn what it is that you like, what it is that you don't, and you make choices that align with that. And then you just feel really comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah. That's very true. I feel like probably my mid-30s, I don't feel like I really knew who I was, or even recently, maybe the past, well, I guess that'd be mid-30s, past 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's crazy to think that I lived 35 to 40 years of my life and really had no clue what I was doing or my preferences. Or, I mean, I knew things I liked to do and this and that, and, you know, a lot of the bad behaviors I used to partake in. But really, it took a lot of pain and a lot of growth and this and that to really figure out who I was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say, like, I think it's hard for some people to be truly accepting of themselves, or just to be like, this is who I am, deal with it. Because I don't, you know, I'm a people pleaser by nature. So and I have really thin skin. So that's something that's really hard for me, is to, rather than saying, well, I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
When I really do. I know I do. So, and some people, you know, I guess, I don't know if accepting that can make it easier, or I don't know how to get that thick skin. So for some people, I think it's in their nature to be like, I don't care what you think. It doesn't affect me. And other people, I think they struggle with it more. But that doesn't mean that you have to let it dominate every decision of your life either.
I totally relate to that because I feel like I'm a recovering people pleaser. When I decided to move forward with life in a different way, where it was like, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be honest about who I am and communicate that. That was not something that was really easy for me. And it wasn't like I don't care about what the people think. I would have felt and have felt like rejected, you know. I have felt, and judgment is a huge thing for me, like we've talked about before, and you know firsthand too with me, is that judgment from feeling judged by others is something that I feel like I came here to overcome that particular thing. And when I said, okay, I'm just going to do this, it wasn't easy. It was just, I'm going to try this and see if this works, because I don't want to feel like this anymore, and I want to feel comfortable. And so if I have to feel a little bit uncomfortable to move through to the other side, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to break the pattern, you know, and it was a conscious decision.
And that's, well, you chose yourself.
Yeah, I chose myself. Absolutely.
And I guess that plays into relationships too, because it can kind of be keeping people at a distance, or not, and that's probably not the right word to use, but not letting them rent space in your head, essentially. Right. That's an AA term, but not worrying about how they feel about you.
And I'm not someone that is aggressive in that way, you know. And I think sometimes when people are aggressive in that way, there may be some insecurity underlying there. It was definitely something that was hard. It was something I was surrendering to.
That's always a good topic. That's topic of its own. Letting go and surrender.
But I don't go at different situations and I'm like, hey, this is who I am, right? I don't share everything with everyone. If I know that someone's not in alignment with some of the things that I think or feel or believe, I just don't need to talk about it, you know? And then our relationship is what it is. Like Tyler Perry, I just saw something, I think it was on Oprah's page. Tyler Perry was talking about how he thinks of people as trees. There are leaves, right? So there are people who are just there for the season. They fall away. Maybe you don't talk to them anymore, but that's okay. You could have had a good experience, bad experience. You've learned from that. Then there are branches, and the branches could be strong or not strong, depending on how long that you've been with them, right? And they may break easily, or they may be more sturdy. And you can navigate your relationship based on where you are with those people. And then you have those people who are your roots, who don't have to be seen, don't have to be heard. Like for him specifically, he's a famous person. So those are people who are close to him that he knows that he can go to, and they'll be honest with him. And they love him for him, not for his celebrity. So I really liked that metaphor.
And I've thought about that over the years, because thinking about my parents' friendships and relationships when we were growing up, it's like they'd be friends with someone for a couple years and they disappear. And then they have a new set of friends. And even thinking about like back on my life, or it's very rare that someone is in your life your whole life.
Yeah.
Like no matter, you kind of go through like really, really close best friends, and sometimes it fizzles out. But if you think about it, like all the relationships probably have served some kind of purpose, whether it's pointed you in a certain direction, or for that time period you needed that person in your life because something was going on. They helped you grow somehow. If you really think about it, you could say, well, nothing happens accidentally, or everything happens for a reason, and that's a cliche statement, but really it seems like certain people come into our lives at certain times because they have a certain purpose.
Yeah.
I do kind of believe that. Like,
absolutely. And you're thinking about some of these relationships that we've had, and it is rare that you have somebody in your life who's really close to you outside of your family, I'd say, that you've been really close to, and that has seen you through lots of different phases of your life. And maybe you were closer at some times than you were others, and they stepped in or stepped back whenever they needed to, or you needed to.
Yeah.
All that is informative as well. Can you think of a relationship, a specific relationship that was formative for you, that you don't have to say names if you don't want to, but that you can really think, boy, I really learned a lot and grew from being with that person, or of knowing that person?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of people in AA, and I was, for the 15 years I was really active there. And there's a person in particular that really like taught me a lot. Our relationship kind of faded, and then once I stopped going, it really, I haven't talked to him since then, but he really taught me a lot. And there's people at work. There was an individual that him and I almost worked every single day together, and we were really close. But then once you stop working together, it seems like those relationships are like, you're really close when you're working together, and then someone either gets promoted or they take a new job, and it's really hard to keep those relationships like together, and that's the thing, like with my parents, it seemed like those were the types of relationships they had. It'd be like a work friend of my dad, and he would get promoted and then wasn't really allowed to hang out together anymore. So then, stuff like that. But
whether you move on or somebody else moves on in a work situation, and you're like, oh, we're totally going to get together.
Yeah, and then it just never happens.
And just never.
But like you said, and you've had friendships over the years that, like your best friend, I mean, sometimes you might go 6 months without really interacting, but your relationship has never really suffered.
Right.
It's like, and that's almost a good thing, where not every relationship has to be dominating, or has to be like, we have to be together all the time, or we have, frankly, I don't think relationships like that are very strong. They're more dependent.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know. I guess everyone has different needs, but
like my mom, I talk to her every day.
Well, that's,
and it's just, we joke that it's a constant conversation, and we're not ever really talking about, I mean, there are some days where we talk about stuff, but I'll like call her on my...
It's just to hear each other's voice, or check in, or...
Yeah.
And that makes sense too, I guess.
And then like my cousin, it will go months without talking, but she's like my sister. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like so if you think of energetic cords, right? We have these energetic cords that we're really attached to each other, and we'll think, oh, I've been thinking about her, I need to call her, or there's something going on, I know there's something going on, and we'll call. Because she lives 45 minutes away, which isn't very far, but she's got a big job and a child, where she has to get them to different places, and it's a divorced situation too. And so we have a lot of these things that are similar, that were just kind of like happening in our lives, and we don't really necessarily get a chance to see each other as much as we want to, but we have that energetic connection that we always kind of know what's going on with each other. And that's how my friend that you were talking about that's how we are as well.
We're talking about relationships and how it impacts our growth. And, I feel like when we got together and started dating, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff about our relationship that really helped me grow as an individual, because there were a lot of firsts for me. And that, so if you think about intimate relationships, they can help you grow that way. You know, there were a lot of, I don't want to say sacrifices, but I think I made myself more vulnerable. You know, I finally was like doing everything not doing everything I could, but I always said I would never date or get serious with a girl who had a child, or, you know, I'd probably never get married. I'd probably never live with anyone, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, there were a lot of firsts, and I feel like that taking those steps and kind of fighting through that fear really has helped me grow as an individual. But you think about like bad relationships too, it can maybe be harder for people to learn at first from those, but those can help us grow as well, that if you are able to escape them, you know, like that's the problem, is being able to get out of it and then letting the healing happen to realize I don't ever want anything like that again. That is not a person I want to be with. And then nurturing yourself to heal from it. I think the hardest part is like realizing you're in a bad relationship or situation and getting out of it. You know?
To that point, I grew up in a situation where my parents are still together. I just kind of thought that you just get married and you figure it out.
Yeah.
I never felt like, okay, divorce is an option. You know, to that point of you have to figure out how to get out. Like you have to get out of it, and then you can figure out what you need, what you don't, reflect on it. And in that situation that I was in before, I probably just would have stayed because I was going to fight through it and try to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure it out. I'm
not
going
to let this fail.
I'm not going to let this fail. Right. So I was probably a little too competitive to say, okay, we're done, you know? And I feel like that was probably a gift that he offered to us both, was to say, is this really what we want to do here? Is this really what feels good?
Yeah.
You know? And then, you know, I thought about it and was like, you know what? No, and that's not like that was just like a one-day conversation and it was over. Looking at that and saying, okay, what am I going to do different in the next relationship with you, the beneficiary of? You know, what am I going to do different in the next relationship? And how do I want to navigate it? And how do I want to be? What do I want it to look like? And then meeting you have taught me so much in this relationship. Vulnerability, 1,000%. And I know I'm not completely where I want to be yet, but I feel so safe in this relationship to grow in that way, to be willing to grow in that way. And thoughtfulness. You are the most thoughtful person I've ever met in my life. And I don't consider myself a selfish person, but I'm just like constantly moving. You know, my brain is constantly moving. It can be hard for me to stop and think about doing something different,
or the little minor details,
right?
Yeah, you look at like the big details, but not the little.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great description. Being with you has encouraged me to grow in that way and just be more thoughtful about my day, what's going on, be thoughtful of the people around me, what is needed or not even necessarily needed, but what would they like to receive? Well, if that makes sense.
Because since this kind of ties into learning in our relationships, but a lot of this stuff I learned when I got sober too, from AA. It was because these were the things that helped me stay sober, was thinking of other people. But, you know, it's like something I learned in the relationship with AA, you're learning through a relationship with me. And, you know, it just kind of like pay it forward, I guess, you know, like pass it on, pay it forward, whatever.
I feel like you've helped me slow down, which is good, because I felt like I was a mouse on a spiral or on a wheel, you know, for so many years. And I would get up and I would go and I would do this and I would do this and I would come home and I would do this and I would, you know, so I'm just always kind of thinking about the next thing to do. Yeah. This relationship has helped me slow down. And then just be very honest. Like there are things that I would normally not have even mentioned that I'll say, you know what, I'm thinking about this, I'm feeling like this. If I keep this in, it's not being dishonest, because it doesn't have anything to do with our relationship, but I'm not giving my full self to the relationship. So I'll say, hey, I've been feeling like this, or hey, I've been thinking about this, or trying to be more open and offering you more of me in that way. And that's helped me grow. I appreciate the safety of our relationship has allowed me to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting how you got to start somewhere. For it to happen as a whole, you got to start somewhere. So if it starts in the home or starts at work, and then you kind of start to change. But I would say it's really hard to capitalize on that growth or that attribute or whatever if you don't have a place where you can be yourself, or you come home and you feel suppressed, or you go to work and you feel suppressed, or I don't know if that makes any sense, kind of scatterbrain with that idea, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely,
you got to be able for that little mustard seed, or that little change of how you're doing things to grow. You got to be able to be comfortable in all areas of your life.
1,000%. I think in order to have, like what you said, in order to be able to really grow and access that growth, there has to be a level of safety, and whether that's internal emotional safety and security of like who you are, and I feel strong, and I'm going to move forward in a different pattern, right? Like we talked about earlier, or feeling safe in a relationship, an intimate relationship or a friendship, to be more vulnerable than what you normally would be, so that you can grow and get deeper into the relationship and connection with that person. And of course, at work too is a big thing, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable at work because they're afraid to get fired, right? There's attachment to from a financial safety perspective.
It depends how blunt you are. Like,
sure.
I guess you could probably think like I'm just being myself and I'm being overly blunt are the same things, which you can be yourself, as you don't have to be overly blunt or loud, or I don't know.
Well, like Ren says, there's a nice way to tell people to eat shit and die.
Yeah, and that's very true.
So
you probably get
Ren.
your point across a lot more too, saying it in a nice way rather than vulgar.
So that's an example of, knowing where you're at and modifying maybe yourself, your behavior, your situation to make it work better for you, right? And work better for everyone, essentially. Because you want it to be a win-win, and you don't want to repress yourself. So I agree. It does start with feeling comfortable wherever it is that you are.
Yeah.
But most importantly, with yourself.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to grow if you're not being supported. It really is, or if you don't feel comfortable. And this is I feel like we could probably do another podcast, because I feel like we haven't really touched. We've just been talking about like the ways we've changed, or there's a lot that we could talk about, and how there's so many different relationships that you can learn from and grow from, like whether it's people behaving the way you don't want to behave, and you really process that, and you're like, you know what, I choose not to be like that. Or you see someone who's just like down to earth and spiritual and always smiling, you're like, hey, I want to be like that. There's just so many different relationships that are like that.
I think that's a great idea. Maybe our next one is part 2.
Yeah, we just
and go a little bit deeper, because we did kind of go all over the place where we said, hey, there are lots of different types of relationships. They can help us grow. We talked about a few. We go a little more specific. Being a parent.
Being a dog mom. Being a baseball mom.
Being a dog dad. Right? Having a baby, whether it be a person baby or a puppy baby.
But those relationships too, you can learn a lot. You learn patience. Absolutely. Or you can just learn how to be irritable all the time. Yeah. But I mean, it's true. Like, so we'll have to touch up on this again, I think.
Yeah, part 2 next time.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to end on?
No.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and come back for part 2.
And feel free to give us feedback if you know us. We hope someone's getting something out of it. So.
For sure.
And it's what, 7 days before the holidays, before Christmas, Xmas, whatever. So
Hanukkah's happening now.
Yeah, if you listen to this before, then have a safe, happy holiday.
Absolutely.
See you later.
Bye.